Hello friends, today we are going to discuss about how to write a scientific paper. Here you will learn about how to write a good research paper, what are the key components and how we can do a good research writing. So a scientific experiment is not complete until the results have been published and understood by the scholars. A scientific paper is written and published report describing the original research results. So if you have done some type of research and if it is not published, then this research won't be useful to society or for any industrial production. What is scientific writing? The purpose of scientific writing is to communicate new scientific findings, that you do research and then you communicate your research through research writing. Thus it has been clear and simple, and it should be well oriented communication to transmit new scientific finding to the scholarly community. Scientific writing must use proper English which gives the sense in the fewest possible words. So the originality of the scientific papers depends on different things, and first of all we will understand how the scientific process of writing evolved. Knowledge is lost without written record. If we have a lot of knowledge, but if you don't write it down, then it won't be able to recall you or use it for further dissemination. In earlier days, cave painting and inscriptions were the first attempt to leave records. In fact, around 2000 BC, papyrus paper were used as a medium of communication in China. In 190 BC, parchment made from animal skin came into use. In 105 AD, the Chinese invented paper. Knowledge could not be widely circulated with no effective duplication. In 1100 AD, the Chinese invented movable typing system. In 1455, Gutenberg printed his 42-line Bible from movable type on a printing press. So this was the starting of printing press. By the year 1500, thousands of copies of the book called the Incubula were printed. In 1965, the first scientific journal were published. So scientific publication has been in vogue from 1665. IMRAD story. Introduction, methods, results, and discussion. Early journal published descriptive papers. Still some case reports and geological survey still published descriptive papers. By the second half of 19th century, reproducibility of the experiment became a fundamental principle of the scientific results on experiments. The method sections became all important since Louis Pasteur confirmed the germ theory of disease. IMRAD organization of scientific paper started to develop. IMRAD format slowly progressed in the latter half of 19th century, and this is most preferred format of the research paper in most of the scientific journals. IMRAD format. I stands for introduction. What is the research question? What is the problem that you have studied or tried to answer in your research paper? M stands for methods. How was the problem studied? So here we can discuss about the methodology that we have adopted. R stands for results. What are the findings or results? And D stands for discussion. What do these findings mean? How it is related with the findings of other scholars? Organization of a scientific paper. With the invention of IMRAD format, it became more easier for organizing paper, a scientific paper. In a number of scientific methods we are used to achieve directly related results. M plus R experimental section. The results are so complex that they need to be immediately discussed. So sometimes we call it results and discussion section. In some papers we find that results and discussion are done in a single section. So what is a scientific paper? A scientific paper is written in published report describing original research results. It must be the first publication of the original research results in a form where peers of the authors can repeat the experiment and test the conclusions in a journal or other source document readily available within the scientific community. An accepted original scientific publication contains scientific information to enable peers so that they can access the observations, they can repeat the experiment to evaluate intellectual process, they can repeat the experiment in different contexts, available to scientific community without restrictions, available for regular screening by one or more of the major recognized secondary services, and it should be indexed in biological abstract, indexed Medicus, PubMed, etc. Poor experimental cannot be masked by brilliant writing. However, poor writing can mask brilliant experimentation. So avoid complex sentence structure. Try to use simple and clear English language. Always keep in mind that the paragraph is the essential unit of thought and it should be interrelated and coherent while writing your research article. Before starting the writing of the paper, we must record your results or findings. Make tables, draw some graphs, keep file to record summary of the results and any observation, however insignificant it might be. Date of the file, date of the experiment, date of the sample collection and other things. Revise your readings. You may need to repeat an experiment while you still have the materials. Sometimes one-time result can be different from what is done repeatedly. So first of all, try to repeat it so that you are confirmed that the results are authentic. Write ideas whenever they come to you so that you can jot it down on a paper, and while writing you can recollect and reconnect other points and start writing. Essential part of scientific paper. Title. Title describes concisely the core content of the paper. It should not be more than 20 words, not more than 2 lines when the font size is 16 to 18 point. Abstract. Summarize the major element of the paper and it should not be more than 200 words. Some journals recommend that it should be 100. Introduction provide context and rationale for the study. So in introduction we can write about the literature study so that we can show how the concept is developed, what is the findings of other scholars in these fields, materials or methods. Describe the experimental design so that it can be reproduced. In the method section we can describe the experimental procedures, how it was done step by step should be described. Results summarizes the findings without interpretation, and the discussion interprets the finding of the, and this also has the discussion of the other findings of the other scholars or researchers. Summarize or summary or conclusions summarizes the findings or discussion of the paper in 100 or 200 words. Acknowledgement. Give credit to those who helped you while doing the experiment or research writing. In references, list down all the scientific paper, books, website that you have cited or referred in your research paper. The title. A good title is defined as the fewest possible word that adequately describe the content of the paper. The title is extremely important and must be chosen with great care as it will be read by thousands, whereas few will read the entire paper. Indexing and abstracting of the paper depends on the accuracy of the title. An improperly titled paper will get lost and will never be read in this wave of the world. Titles should neither be too short nor too long, as it should convey the right meaning. Don't use extensive words. Avoid using syntax. It should contain the keyword that reflect the content of the paper. It should be meaningful and not generalized. It should be concise, specific, and informative. It should capture the fundamental nature of the experiment and findings of the research paper. So an example can be action of antibiotics on bacteria, mechanism of supervision of non-transmissible pneumonia in mice induced by Newcastle disease virus. So these are some of the examples. How to prepare the title. To make a list of the most important keywords that you have used in your research writing, think of a title that contains these keywords. The title could state the conclusion of the paper. That the title never contains abbreviations, so avoid any abbreviations in title. Rethink of the title before submitting the paper. Be careful of the grammatical error due to faulty word order. The abstract. It is the mirror of your research paper. An abstract can be defined as a summary of the information in a document. It is of the fundamental importance that the abstract be written clearly and simple. It is the first and something that one part of the manuscript that is read by most of the scholars. It should provide a brief summary of each of the main sections like findings, results, discussion. State the principal objective and scope of the investigation. Describe the methods and summarize the results. State the principal conclusions in the abstract. Other criteria of the abstract, it should not exceed 250 words. In most of the journals they ask 200 words. In some journals they ask for 100 words only. It should be written in one paragraph. It should be written in the past tense as it refers to the work done. Long words should be followed by its abbreviations, which would be used throughout the abstract and paper. It should not cite any reference. It should never give any information or conclusions that is not stated in the paper. Introduction. The introduction should answer the following questions. What was I studying? Why was this an important question? What did I know about this topic before I did this study? What model was I testing? What approach did I take for this study? So in introduction we have to provide the literature review of the particular topic so that other readers can understand what was the context of your research. Suggestive rule for a good introduction. It should present the nature and scope of the problem investigated, review the pertinent literature related to the topic, state the method of the investigation, state the principal results of the investigation, state the principal conclusions suggested by some of the results. Some of the rules that we can follow while writing the introduction is to use the present tense when referring to the work that has already been published, but past tense when referring to onward work. Use the active voice as much as possible. Avoid lengthy or unfocused review of the previous research. Cite peer-reviewed scientific literature or scholarly articles which has been published in Scopus, SCI or reputed journals. Define any specific terms or abbreviation used in the research paper or describe the concept used in any research paper of your paper. How to write the materials and methods section. This section provides full details so that the experiment can be reproduced. If the peer reviewer has doubts that the experiment could be repeated, the manuscript will be rejected. Organize the method under subheadings with related methods. Describe together subjects, experimental design, measurements, etc. Describe the experimental design in detail. Do not mix some of the results in this section. Write in past tense. Must identify accurately experimental. What was the condition? What animals or plants were used? The source of the subject studied, number of individuals in each group used, their age, sex, weight, etc. should be defined. If human subjects are used, the criteria for selection should be described and consent should be obtained from the competent authority. For chemical use, include exact technical specifications and source or method of preparation. Avoid the use of trade names of chemicals or generic or chemical names is preferred. In the method section, this part of the manuscript should be clear, precise, and concise so that it can be reproduced. If the method is new, all detail must be provided. If the method has been previously published in a scientific journal, only the reference should be given with some identification. Questions such as how or how much must be answered and not left to be puzzled over. Method used for statistical analysis must be mentioned. How to write the results. Results section is written in the past tense. It is the core or the heart of the research paper. It needs to be clearly and simply stated, since it constitutes the new knowledge contributed to the world. The purpose of this section is to summarize or illustrate the findings in an orderly and logical sequence. Don't provide interpretation or conclusions based on the findings. In the results section, the text should guide the reader through the findings, stressing the major points. Do not describe methods that have already been described in methods or process section that has been inadvertently omitted. Methods of presenting the data directly in the text, in a table, or in a figure. All figures and table must be accompanied by textual presentation of the key findings. Never have a table or figure that is not mentioned in the text. Try to first put the table, then figure or graphs, and then interpretation. Tables and findings. Tables are appropriate for large or complicated set of data that would be difficult to explain clearly in text. Figures are appropriate for data sets that exhibit trends, patterns, or relationships that are best conveyed visually. Any table or figure must be sufficiently described by its title, caption, legends. Do not include both a table and a figure showing the same information. Try to bring something new in both. How to write the discussion section. It is the hardest section to write. Its primary purpose is to show the relationship among observed facts. It should end with a short summary or conclusion regarding the significance of the work. We should cite the work of the other scholars who have done similar type of research. Try to present the principles, relationship, and generalizations shown by the results. Point out any exception or any lack of correlation or define unsettled point in your experiment. Show how your results and interpretations agree or contrast with previously published work of other scholars or researchers. Discuss the theoretical implication of your work and any possible practical applications in your field. State your conclusions as clearly as possible. Conclude your evidences for each. How to acknowledge the acknowledgement section. Any significant technical help that you have received from any individual or lab should be acknowledged here. The source of a specific equipment, culture, or other materials should be acknowledged. So the proposed wording of the acknowledgement, the person should help you acknowledging. Any outside financial assistance such as grants, contracts, or fellowships should be acknowledged. Referencing. Referencing is a standardized way of acknowledging the sources of information or ideas that you have used in your document. A list of all the references should be used. Reference formats vary differently. There are Harvard style, there are AP style, there is MLA style, there is Chicago style. So there are different citation styles available there. We will